Hello and welcome to today's talk. Our topic for today will be behavior, and we'll be focusing on both positive and negative behavior. And all these discussions we'll be having will be in the context of children and adolescents. So what is behavior? I would like to say that behavior is the communication that people exhibit on how they are feeling in the moment, and it can be categorized variously. One, it could be positive, in which case the person who is consuming the behavior appreciates it. In the alternative, it could be negative, in which case the person who's seeing it is not happy with it. And given the definition that I have given, that behavior is an expression of underlying issues, I would like us to appreciate it that way. So when we see behavior, let's appreciate it as a communication, a form of communication to us. Now, we are saying it could be positive, it could be negative, it could be normal, it could be abnormal. Normal, abnormal is contextual. So depending on the environment where you are, it could be appreciated that what somebody is doing is okay. In other contexts, it isn't. For example, there are societies where talking whilst chewing is considered to be okay, whilst in other environments, it's considered to be offensive. So that's the context kind of thing that I'd like us to address ourselves to. As parents and caregivers, we'd want to know what are some of the things that promote positive behavior. Because parents, broadly speaking, would like their children and those that they're responsible for to exhibit positive behavior throughout. Incidentally, life happens, and not always that happens. So the question is, why? So as a parent, some of the things that you could do that could promote positive behavior is role modeling. If you want a certain kind of behavior, it's important that you model that kind of behavior. It is quite problematic for the young ones when the older people in their circles say one thing and do something else. So for example, if we would like the children to use polite language, then it's incumbent upon us to use polite language, because otherwise they will do as we do, not as we say. So it doesn't matter how many times you tell them, hey, don't be impolite, don't be rude. If they're seeing rudeness, they will display rudeness. The relationship between the parents is also very critical in determining whether the children will display positive or negative behavior. So in this case, we are saying that it's important for parents to manage how they relate in the presence of children. When there's disagreement, it needs to be managed in a way that does not create a problem for them in the way of modeling the wrong kind of behavior. So I would encourage that parents take time to discuss the issues that may be causing them discomfort in private for the sake of the children. It is also important that as parents, we listen to the children when they are speaking. There's a tendency for some parents not to actively listen. So the child would be speaking, and instead of sitting and listening, you'd be busy doing other things. Now, those sort of things will make the child feel that they're not being heard, and they'll behave in a way that tries to draw attention to them so that they can be heard. So to avoid that kind of thing, I would then say, actively listen. In fact, if the child is young, go down to their level so that you're not towering over them. You're sitting and you're looking at them straight up. The other thing that a parent can do is to keep the promise. So when you keep the promise, you develop a sense of trust in the children. So they know that my parent and people like my parent and guardians, who are generally adults, can be trusted. When they say, they do. Now, if you fail to do as you say, then the child gets a message that, hey, if I want something, it's not enough that we have a conversation, I have to have a bit of drama around it. And that's not quite helpful. Another area that I would like to talk about is the area of defining rules and going by those rules and saying no. It is a problem for many people that they are very permissive. So when the child asks for something, it's yes all the way. So what then would happen is in the home environment, they'll get all they want. When they are out of that environment, other people will not give them that kind of luxury. And they will feel a sense of entitlement and exhibit negative behavior. So to avoid that, we'd encourage parents to be able to say no when it's appropriate and to say yes when it's appropriate. It's also not good to just say no all the way. That is not helpful and it's not healthy. Using of names and labeling the children is quite a problem because they have the tendency to adopt the labels that we give them. So if you have given a child a task to do and they fail to do it, then the conversation should be, excuse me, Peter, or excuse me, Jane, you were supposed to do this thing and you haven't done it. Why might that be? They'll give you the explanation. If it is not satisfactory, then you proceed to have the consequences that we had discussed. However, if you opt to label them lazy, for example, I've given you work and you're not doing it, so you're lazy. That then leaves them feeling, oh, okay, so I'm lazy, fine. Then I will behave as I have been labeled, you see. So we then discourage that kind of engagement with the child. It also helps to have a safe environment within which the child operates. Because when there is insecurity within a child's environment, then they will tend to adopt certain behaviors to try and protect themselves in that instance. Now, that would present itself as unpleasant behavior. So, for example, if you're raising a child in an environment where you're not providing them with sufficient food, then it is highly likely that they'll go to the neighbor's house to look for food, and you may not want them to do that. So it is then incumbent upon you as a parent to provide that safe environment which makes them amenable to behaving in the positive ways that you expect. Affirmation is something that also helps a lot in encouraging positive behavior, because what that does is to tell the child that, hey, I have noticed the good thing that you've done and I like it. And when they get that message, it reinforces it. And the likelihood that they'll do it again and again is increased. So for example, if as a parent you have asked your child, could you be making your bed when you wake up? And you find progressively they wake up, they make their bed as you had agreed. It's important that you take notice and say, hey, Peter, I've seen that you've made your bed, good job. That way, Peter sees that the work they've done is appreciated and they're likely to do it again. Now, the last point I'd like to discuss in terms of encouraging positive behavior is active participation in the lives of the children. We are living in a very fast-paced kind of environment, and because that is the case, many of us find ourselves challenged to be present with the children, and actively so. So the presence I'm talking about is not being in the house with your gadget, be it laptop, phone, or tablet, and the children are doing their things. No, I am talking about sitting with the children and engaging with them, telling stories, asking questions, finding out how their day was, actively engaging. Because when the children are engaged, then it promotes good behavior. And it is in those instances also as a parent that you're able to see that the children are doing the right thing and to correct them.